What's going on, guys, and welcome back to Hashtag AskGSM here today, episode 209 for November 29th, 2017. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. And every single week right here on the show, of course, I answer your questions from Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. So if you want to send in a question, be sure to tweet me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/graham.gsm.matthews by leaving a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself, or by simply leaving a comment on this very video in the comment section down below. I'll include your question in next week's edition. So without further ado, let's get right into it. I got to do a teleconference, an Impact conference call in less than an hour with Alberto El Patron. So that should be interesting, so we got to hurry this up. But first question from Emmanuel A. from YouTube. So I was watching Armageddon 2006, and there was a boring chant during the Cruiserweight Championship match between Gregory Helms and Jimmy Wang Yang that pissed off JBL, who called the match one of the best Cruiserweight matches we've had here in the WWE, and claims the fans are simply bloodthirsty. JBL specifically says, and I quote, "Teddy Long has done this by putting that stinking Inferno match, MVP versus Kane, there tonight. Do you remember Armageddon 2006? And do you think Helms versus Yang was underappreciated by a simply bloodthirsty crowd?" The only two things I remember about that show was the Inferno match, as you mentioned, and the Undertaker versus Mr. Kennedy match. Was there even a world title match on that show? It might have been. Was it a tag match? Was it not Batista and Rey Mysterio versus Big Show and Kane? No, that was the year before. Then what did they do on this show? Batista, I know, got back the world title. For some reason, I feel like they didn't have a title match. I'm pretty sure it was Batista and someone else versus King Booker and Finlay. And then they did the world title match a few days later on SmackDown because it was on Batista's DVD. I don't remember exactly, but it was something dumb like that. Yeah, this was not the most memorable show. I did watch the show about a year ago for WrestleRant. I have not seen it since, and like I said, it's a pretty forgettable show. Those are the only two matches I remember, the two main matches with the Brothers of Destruction involved. I think I remember talking about the match between Helms and Yang and saying that, yeah, it was well wrestled, but no one gave a shit. It was a lot like the Cruiserweight matches we get now, where they're fucking well wrestled, but no one can possibly care. I could see why JBL would be upset about that, but it's the same issue that we're dealing with the Cruiserweights today. This is not a new issue with the Cruiserweights, that, oh my god, people don't care about the Cruiserweights. That wasn't the case 3 or 4, 10 years ago or whatever, when the original Cruiserweight division was around in the WWE. No, it was an issue then too. We had it for maybe 3 or 4 years back in, from 03 to 07 or whatever it was. But beyond Gregory Helms holding the championship for a year, no one gave a shit about any of those guys. Yeah, they could do the flippity-doo-dahs, and it was a bit more rare back then than it is compared to today, where everyone does flips and dives and super kicks and shit like that. But they had no characters. Jimmy Wang Yang, the fucking redneck from the South, the Asian redneck as they call them, who could possibly care with a character like that? You know what I'm saying? So I cannot blame the crowd whatsoever. I'm sure the match was good, but who the fuck could possibly care? I'm sure it was well wrestled, but when there's no feud at stake there and it's just a match, like I'm thinking that it was the same pay-per-view just a year earlier. It was like Kid Cash versus like Juventud Guerrera. Ooh, like that would have been a great match in WCW, but in 2005, 2006, good wrestling ain't just going to cut it anymore. They need real characters and feuds and reasons for people to invest. They didn't have that with the WWE Cruiserweight division. They had that issue then, and they have that issue now. His second question, do you remember Ric Flair in 2002? He had his first WWF/WWE match in 9 years at the Royal Rumble, 02, against Vince McMahon. His next match was against The Undertaker at WrestleMania 18. Then he became the GM of Raw. Then he turned heel and started a feud with Steve Austin. Austin left, so he was immediately turned face, had a rematch with Vince on Raw to determine who would get 100% control of both Raw and SmackDown, and lost after interference from Brock Lesnar. He feuded with Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit since they were originally supposed to feud with Austin. Then he was doing matches against everyone from The Rock to Stevie Richards. He lost to Rico on Raw. Then he fought Triple H for the World Heavyweight Championship on Raw, lost, and then turned heel to align with Triple H. Is there anyone else who had so many ups and downs in one calendar year? I was aware of all of that, but when you really put it like that, Ric Flair probably had his best year ever in WWE in 2002. Between all the stuff he was able to do. Now, I know he was a former WWE champion in 1992. You know, he had a great year in 92, but beyond that, the remainder of his run in WWE was very lackluster. He was obviously not the Ric Flair of old. He was perfectly positioned as a manager and to help put people over like Triple H and guys like Batista and stuff like that later on and a few years later. But beyond that, I mean, the remainder of his run was very uneventful. I know he was a former Intercontinental Champion as well, a belt that he won, I think, in 2005. But yeah, 02 was a crazy year for Ric Flair. It's hard to say if anyone else has had as many ups and downs in one calendar year as Ric Flair did in 02. I can't really speak to that too much. That would really take some research. But yeah, when you put it like that, he had a pretty crazy year in 02, to say the least. Elena the Y from YouTube. I feel like the elephant in the room when it comes to... by the way, I should mention this question was deleted, so I don't know if they want me to still answer it, but I saved the question before they deleted it, and I thought it was an interesting question, so we'll talk about it, I guess. I feel like the elephant in the room when it comes to NXT has reared its head. Wrestlers who do not have like 2 years of development time have a superior chance to succeed on the main roster because their story can be freshly introduced to audiences. With NXT, people are yelling about how they need the backstories of Sami Zayn or Bayley or Finn Balor, but look at Elias. He spent less time in NXT, got a new chance to make an impression, and people have eaten it up. Either the main roster needs to do better in bridging the gap, or NXT needs to restructure itself, because I'm starting to wonder if NXT prepares someone for Raw SmackDown more than any other promotion does. Look at how many wrestlers came and went with minimum fanfare in previous eras. What real difference has NXT made? Wrestlers getting to peak in WWE's developmental program? ? Okay, I thought that I understand what you're saying, but I thought it was so ridiculous. Even though you deleted the comment, I thought it was interesting to answer. And maybe you deleted it because you already knew the answer as to what I'm about to say. And I know John had brought this up to me about a year and a half ago or so, and it wasn't his really train of thought. He had seen it somewhere else, some other YouTuber or something. That essentially what you're saying is that NXT has to dumb itself down because the main roster writers cannot fucking handle a new superstar like a Bobby Roode or a Shinsuke Nakamura. I could not disagree with that more. That to me is so asinine that, the main roster is fucking up all these people, so NXT should just stop doing what it does best in establishing characters and giving people a chance to care. I understand what you're saying with Elias. That's one example, though. He is the only person that is ever, not the only person, but maybe one of very few people that was used better on the main roster than he ever was in NXT, and he was there for a lengthy period of time. Okay, go back to your first sentence there, that wrestlers who do not have 2 years of development have a better chance of succeeding on the main roster. Dana Brooke? Dana Brooke was in NXT for a fucking year. She is awful. Could not be any further from the truth. Just because you don't have 2 years of development time, that means you're going to be better on the main roster than a guy like Shinsuke Nakamura or Finn Balor. No, it's because the main roster writers have no idea how to utilize these people and give them a reason to care about these characters. Give us a reason to care about these characters. Dana Brooke, Adam Rose. Yeah, he's a lot like Elias, or he was in NXT for a couple of years. I mean, you say Elias wasn't there for a long time. Kind of inaccurate. I mean, he had been there since like 2014 as a job guy. And he only really got his start in late 2015 before getting called up in 2017. So you're kind of wrong on that. Adam Rose is in a similar boat where he did nothing for a long time as the Leo Kruger character and all that other shit. He got called up as Adam Rose, like literally a month or two after he got repackaged, which was ridiculous because he should have spent way more time in NXT, and he died a death. No one gave a shit. So that's also inaccurate. And just because they need more time in developmental, like the Ascension was down in NXT for 2 or 3 years, and they just didn't work because they're just, I don't know, they didn't really have that great of a run in NXT, and they haven't had a great of a run on the main roster. So NXT, should not restructure itself just because, Raw and SmackDown don't do that great of a job of developing characters and giving us a reason to care and all that other shit. Just because they are insufficient and they're not that competent at giving us a reason to care about these people doesn't mean that NXT should dumb itself down for Raw and SmackDown. That's just asinine. I mean, I understand what you're saying with previous eras and that we didn't have these expectations coming in like, this guy should be a real superstar because we didn't see their backstory down in developmental with guys like Batista or Randy Orton or even, other people like that. I know what you mean that we have like zero expectations. We had zero expectations for people coming up to the main roster in the past because we didn't see their whole backstory in NXT or FCW or OVW or whatever. But NXT is such a great platform, and you can still have NXT without being televised. I understand what you're saying, but it's such a great outlet for the people that are coming in to be able to get this feedback on what works and what doesn't from people watching. I mean, you can learn a lot in developmental without TV, but having the TV platform and being able to work in front of such large audiences on the weekends of Big 4 pay-per-views, or now Big 5, I guess, because Money in the Bank will be a co-branded pay-per-view next year. Should have always been a Big 5 pay-per-view, but I'm getting off track here. That lends a lot of experience for people like Roderick Strong, who's always been a great wrestler, but he doesn't really know how to connect with an audience too well, but he's gotten better at doing that in the last 6 months and working with larger crowds like Brooklyn, like Chicago, like War Games, or in San Antonio, whatever, Houston. So again, I could not disagree with that more. I know what you're saying, the NXT, people get way too good in NXT, and then it's just a letdown on the main roster. Look at Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins. I mean, for every Elias, there's guys that didn't. I mean, that Kevin Owens, he was not in NXT for too long, but he had a great run there, as did Seth Rollins. But they also went on to bigger and better things on the main roster as future world champions. So again, I understand what you're saying, but I just disagree with that immensely. Captain Sunshine from YouTube, I thought Raw this week was good, despite that not being the consensus, it seems. The Cruiserweights got real time in a 4-way where everyone got to look good. Rollins Cesaro is a layup. Roman Elias earned a "This is awesome" chant. Matt Hardy is broke. Asuka murdered Dana. And what's more, no authority. So Kane aside, this was good. How come nobody else is just enjoying the show this week? I didn't think it was a great Raw. I mean, it wasn't that newsworthy of a night. But yeah, I thought it was a good show. I enjoyed it too. I was kind of surprised that it got as negative of a reaction as it did. Now, people weren't calling it the worst Raw of the year, but people were like, like who cares? Not that good of a show. Like, I mean, it wasn't, again, a great show, but for everything you just mentioned, I thought it was a good show. Like, people will always give the Cruiserweights shit, and I will from time to time as well, but it's like, what do people want from the Cruiserweights? When it's a short match, I'll say like, wow, that's a complete fucking waste. No wonder people don't care about them. Yet they get a long match and people are like, oh, they went on for 12 minutes. What time filler? Like, who could possibly care? Like, what? Like, what do you want from these people? Like, I know we want character development, but in terms of longer matches, that's what they need. They need longer matches so they don't feel like bathroom breaks. What the fuck do you people want from the Cruiserweights in the ring? I understand the whole character thing. I've said that a million times. They should just scrap the whole division. I understand that. But, like, from an in-ring standpoint, what the fuck do you want from these guys? If they have a 2-minute match, you say it's filler, that it's a waste. That how can anyone get over in 2 minutes? I agree with that. I say that all the time. Yet when they get the time to have a good match, like they did on Raw this week, I agree. The crowd didn't really care. I mean, why would they have any reason to, beyond the fact that a future championship title shot is on the line? That's great. I appreciate the approach they're taking with this, and making these matches more meaningful. I thought that was good. It was a well wrestled match, and Rich Swann was the right guy to go over. I like that. So anyway, that's another topic for another day. But yeah, I enjoyed Roman and Elias. People pooped all over it. Some people did. My timeline loved it on Twitter on Monday, and I agreed. I thought it was a good match, and Elias was made to look good. You knew he wasn't going to win, but I thought it was good. The Absolution stuff with Paige, Mandy Rose, and Sonya Deville I thought was good with the women. Good storyline development there. Good storyline progression. I thought that was well done. I completely forgot Triple H and Stephanie weren't even on the show. I don't even think Kurt Angle was on the show. I know he made an appearance afterward. He might have been in a backstage segment at some point, but I know he appeared before the crowd after the show. And I don't mind Kurt, just really Triple H and Stephanie. I don't really care for being on Raw too much. Yeah, the main event stuff with Balor and Kane kind of ended the night on a sour note, but you're right. I thought it was a solid show. Rollins and Cesaro was also really, really good. And the Matt Hardy thing I think is awesome. So I think that show deserves more credit than what it was given. Their next question. Now that Mojo Rawley has finally turned on Zack Ryder and broken up the Hype Bros, does that mean Mojo is the biggest babyface on the roster? You know what? I might be mistaken. Was there not "This is awesome" chants when Mojo turned on Zack? maybe I was just mishearing it. I was waiting in line at Starbucks after class last night, watching it on my fucking phone before I went home. And I thought I heard "This Is Awesome" chants. Maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe they were booing Mojo. I'm not exactly sure. I thought that was a bit odd. I think Mojo is better off as the heel. I'm glad Zack Ryder's the babyface. But then again, I'm a huge Zack Ryder mark, so that should surprise no one that I just said that. But at least the split has finally happened. It should have happened 3 months ago. But you know what? Better late than never, I guess. Next question, also from Captain Sunshine. Why does Randy Orton's hair look like he's auditioning to play John Cena? It's funny you mentioned that. And, I mean, that's been the case for a while now. He's got the crew cut going for at least the last couple of weeks. But people only really started to notice, like, in the last week or so. Maybe just because it got longer since last Tuesday or 2 weeks ago, whenever we last saw him. But you mentioned that. You brought it up in your question right there. I saw someone tweet about it last night, and even my girlfriend brought it up when we were watching the show together last night. She goes, I like Randy Orton's hair, so he's, Randy Orton, I mean, his hair is like, I don't know, I liked it too, but, I don't know, she liked it, I guess you don't, I don't know if you're saying you don't like it, you're just saying that he looks a lot like John Cena, but, I don't know, it's something different, it's only hair, who cares, at Reborn Again, with all of these women being called up, is it possible that WWE will create a women's tag title in the near future? I've talked about this quite a bit, I know RJ had pitched this as an idea, about a year and a half ago when we had stables like Team Bad, and I think PCB had broken up by that point, but we had the Bella Squad or whatever the fuck it was, which was a complete waste of time. But he did bring up the idea to do a women's tag team title. Now, personally, dating back to like 2011, I wrote about this on Bleacher Report then, and I'm going to say it again now. Now, of course, the women's division is in a better spot now than it was, fucking 7 years ago, 6-7 years ago. I understand that, but I just do not have faith for them to do it properly. And the reason I've always been down on the idea was because the tag titles, the women's tag titles, meant nothing in TNA. Now, I know maybe WWE can do better, but what are the chances of that? Like, because we have two separate rosters, are we going to have two sets of women's tag team titles? Like, that's what I don't really get. It might have made more sense when we had one large women's roster, and I like the brand split, but it's hard to have two sets of women's tag team titles. And yeah, I mean, we have a lot of women on Raw, but a lot of those women should be in the main title picture. And if they're not fighting over the women's title, they should just be having a feud. Like, we don't always have to be having people, men, women, whatever, fighting over a championship. It's just not necessary. Now, I know what you're saying. I think because of all the women being called up, it should bring to fruition the rumor that's been floating for a while now of a women's Royal Rumble. I like that idea a lot. And, of course, another women's Money in the Bank match with both brands next year, since it will be a co-branded pay-per-view. But women's tag title, like, how much would it really mean? Like, I say we just focus on making the two women's titles we have currently mean as much as possible, and that's about it. I'm not really too high on the idea of doing a tag title, but if they do it, I'm not saying that, not to say that they wouldn't, but because we have two brands, that would mean that you have to make two separate tag titles, and that you'd be having the same matches every single week. We already have 6 woman tag team matches, like, seemingly every other week anyway, so I see what you mean, but I'm just not too high on the idea, because I don't think they would do it right. Next question, from @RebornAgain John. His question was, if Almas remains NXT champ, until TakeOver Brooklyn 4, would Johnny Gargano winning it from him work, since it would be the 1-year anniversary of their match at TakeOver Brooklyn 3? I love stuff like that when they do stuff on the anniversary and the storyline and stuff like that. It would be cool. I just don't see it happening because, as many other people have said, I do think that it's going to be Aleister Black beating Almas for the belt, or maybe not Almas, whoever's champion by WrestleMania weekend at the New Orleans show the night before WrestleMania. And I think that'd be a better solution anyway. Gargano, by that point, will have been in NXT for like 3 years. I mean, I guess they can give him a Sami Zayn title run, which is fine. But obviously, all roads do point to Gargano versus Ciampa when Ciampa's back. Ciampa should be back by early 2018. Maybe we get that match in New Orleans, but it should not be a one and done type feud. It should carry on for a few different takeovers, and that would include the one in Brooklyn. So I like the idea, but I just think logistically it wouldn't work out because Gargano might be busy with Ciampa, and I do see Almas dropping the championship before TakeOver Brooklyn 4. to likely Aleister Black, either at the next show or at the show after that. Likely the one over WrestleMania weekend on the 1-year anniversary of his NXT debut. And his third question here was this. Do you think Asuka will remain undefeated throughout 2018? If not, who would you have beat her and why? Do I think she'll remain unbeaten? No. Because do I think she should? Yes. Do I think she should? Do I think she will? No, just because it's WWE and they like to fuck things up. I'm actually, not really surprised, but knowing WWE, they like to squash anything for the most part that NXT does well. So I'm almost kind of shocked they have not had her beaten yet. And at the very least, she should be beaten at WrestleMania 34 at the earliest. It would not surprise me if they had her beat before then. They shouldn't. If it was up to me, I would keep her undefeated for years to come. They can build up something really special with Asuka being undefeated in one-on-one competition. So I think she should remain undefeated. I don't think she will. Who would they have beat her? Okay, who would I have beat her? I'll tell you that in a second. Who do I think they'll have beat her? Like a fucking Sasha Banks. Or, maybe, I don't think Paige would beat her. I think they'd probably have Asuka go over Paige. Probably Charlotte, if anyone. They would probably have Charlotte beat her, because she's like the greatest women's wrestler in this generation. And Charlotte is great, but I'm not sure I would have Charlotte beat her either. Who would I have beat her? Now, I was thinking this back. I was thinking about it while watching NXT TakeOver War Games back a few days ago. Now, I always love watching the takeovers after the fact. I watch them live, of course. I don't think I've missed a takeover yet. I've watched every takeover live, either being there live or watched it on the network live. I have not missed a single one yet. And I can't say the same thing for the WWE pay-per-views. I've missed a handful in the last year because I don't really care about watching them the next day. Takeovers, I always watch live, and I watch them again afterward. And I started that with TakeOver London a few years ago, and after every TakeOver, I've always watched the back before the next TakeOver. So I was watching TakeOver War Games back a few days ago because it was a fucking awesome show. And it got me thinking when I was watching Asuka hand the belt to Ember Moon. Now, I know this is kind of off topic, but not really, because I'll get back to your question in a second, that it kind of sent the message when Ember Moon won the belt that the only reason she won the belt was because Asuka left NXT, and it kind of made Ember Moon and the rest of the NXT women's division look inferior. I understand that, but wouldn't it be cool if they had Ember Moon finally beat Asuka? Now, I thought it would happen at TakeOver Orlando. It didn't. I thought it would happen at TakeOver Brooklyn 3. It didn't. So, would it not be awesome and perfect? And it's very rare they kind of continue stories other than maybe Owens and Zayn between NXT and the main roster. But would it not be awesome to have Ember Moon be the one to finally beat Asuka? Like, not in the next year, but like whenever Ember Moon gets called up within the next year, and maybe at like WrestleMania 35. The third time's the charm, she is finally able to beat Asuka, because no one has come closer to beating her than Ember Moon. Their matches were awesome, and yeah, she won the championship in her absence, the NXT Women's Championship, but I think, honestly, like, it would be awesome if she was the one to finally beat Asuka. After everything they've been through together in NXT, and then she finally is able to beat her and defeat her and prove that she is the better athlete after all, that would be pretty cool. Again, not anytime soon. Obviously, Ember Moon will be down there for a while to come. But like WrestleMania 35, and that's thinking way ahead of the game here, of course, because that's not for another year and a half. So maybe we'll look back on this episode and we'll talk about it, in a year and a half as to who Asuka will be facing at WrestleMania 35. She'll probably be beaten by then. Again, they'll probably have Charlotte beat her at some point in the next year. But that's what I would do. I would keep Asuka undefeated, which I know is a tough task because they have her on TV every single week, and they don't have that many women for her to run through, so she's going to have to be beaten eventually. But I would keep her undefeated through WrestleMania 35 at the earliest. At the earliest, realistically, WrestleMania 34, but that's how I would book it, though. Unless she remains undefeated forever, and that would be pretty damn cool, too. Mark S. from Facebook, do you think the iconic duo of Billie Kay and Peyton Royce should split up with Billie Kay as the heel and Peyton Royce as a babyface, or is it too early? Are they both over enough? No, they should not split up. They are over, but they should not split up. That would be just disastrous. Royce would be better off than Kay. Billie Kay does not have a lot that's special about her. She has a good look. She's not bad in the ring, but I love the iconic duo stuff. They have such awesome chemistry together because they're probably best friends in real life, which is why it works so well. But splitting them up would be the worst thing you can do. Now, I know it's not even like Peyton said at TakeOver War Games, like, hey, stay in the back. When I watched the back the other day, it looked like Bailey Kay was saying to her, you got to do this on your own. You can do this by yourself. So it didn't really look like they were teasing tension. It looked like she was confident that Peyton can do it on her own. Not that it was the other way around. So I don't think they're teasing tension, nor should they, because the iconic duo is way better together than apart. They should be called up to SmackDown at some point. I would have preferred to call them up before Morgan and Logan, but it is what it is, and they'll be up there eventually, I'm sure. His next question: do you think 10 days is a long time after each NXT takeover to get the next NXT episode from Full Sail University? And could NXT do their regular show on a Wednesday after each takeover and do the extra matches from TakeOver as a network special between each TakeOver and the regular NXT show? So that's a long-ass question to basically answer the question that he wants. What he's basically asking is this, that is 10 days between each TakeOver a long time to air whatever's coming up from Full Sail? Like tonight, they're not even airing, I don't think so anyway, Full Sail footage. I think they're taping from Full Sail tonight, but it's not like it's live. To answer someone's question from Twitter, that wasn't a hashtag question, it was just, excuse me, a question that someone asked me a few days ago. They've never aired live from Full Sail for an NXT TV episode, only for live specials, like Arrival and the takeovers and shit. That was about it. Never for a NXT TV episode. So that being said, it's not that big of a deal. They do tape well enough in advance, like a month in advance. It would be cool if it was live. I'm not sure if that would take away from the mystique of NXT. I don't think it would. I think it would be better from spoilers getting out. Like we always hear every Full Sail taping. Like War Games is announced, or Kyle O'Reilly debuted, or something else happened. And it's like, it's cool to hear about on Twitter, and they'll probably announce it on the website or something, but it's always cool to see live. That's why I love the takeovers, because they're live and you don't get spoiled unless you watch it on a delay or whatever. But for the most part, we see everything as it happens, which is awesome. So it would be cool if it went live, but it's not that big of a deal that they wait 10 days to air whatever happened after takeover, because now they tape matches before each takeover in whatever city they're in, which is fine to get those people on the show and in front of the live crowd. I would prefer they would cut right to the fallout from takeovers as opposed to showing us, the YouTube videos and recaps. Like, if I wanted a recap, I'll just watch the show back. Now, it's not that big of a deal because the takeovers are always awesome, obviously. But I do wish they would kind of get to the point and get to the fallout from each takeover and not wait a week and a half or 2 weeks or whatever. Now, what you're also asking is if they should air the matches they tape before each takeover as a network special. That's not necessary. That would be completely pointless. They tape 2 matches at most, 2-3 matches at most, before each takeover. That's not network special worthy. If you're not going to air them on NXT, it's not really all that worth it. But I do agree that they should probably get right to the point and not really tape too many matches before the takeovers. And instead, I think it might be a filming issue, though. I think that might be what it is. They can't get right back to Full Sail soon after each takeover. That might be what it is. I might be wrong. But I think that's why they do what they do, is because they can't get back to Full Sail until like the Thursday after the takeover at the earliest, which is why they don't. And if they do it on a Wednesday, then they're gonna have to do it live or on a Tuesday or whatever. But you know what I'm saying is that they have some logistical issues there and running the building in time and stuff like that. His next question: what would you think of Bray Wyatt ditching the supernatural concept and returning to something like he was before he became the leader of the Wyatt family? Maybe Wildman Bray Wyatt? Would it be better for his wrestling ability and put less pressure on him to win all the time and presently as a leader? So, would it put less pressure on him to win all the time presently as a leader? To change up the gimmick is basically what he's asking. Mark has a knack for asking a simple question in a long paragraph, but I see what he's saying here, though. No, I would not do that. I think the Bray Wyatt character can be money. It's just because it's so poorly mishandled. And I was going to say, what a dumb... it would be so dumb to change up the character. It's a cool character. It's unique. It's different. Why would you go back to whatever he was doing before as Husky Harris? That would be just completely stupid. But then again, it's you know what? The current incarnation of Bray Wyatt, no one gives a shit. We already know the guy's a loser, so why not try something new? I think it would be sad if he ditched the character and went to something else completely different from what we know as Bray Wyatt, because I think the character can work. Just the issue is that no one gives a fuck, because he's been a loser for so long, and he never backs up anything he says, ever. Not once has he ever backed up anything he has said. So I don't really want to see him change characters, but you know what? Maybe it's not the worst idea in the world, because the current incarnation of Bray Wyatt just draws groans from me. Just draws eye rolls, and he elicits hardly any reaction when he comes out from the crowd. And when he's cutting promos about the freaking holidays and all this other shit, like, again, who could possibly care? Who gives a shit? So maybe you're right. Maybe he needs to change his character completely in order to become relevant again, because whatever the hell he's doing right now obviously is not working. His next question: what direction would you be interested in seeing Matt Hardy take after his breakdown on Monday Night Raw? Become broken. That's what I want to see. Have Matt Hardy go broken. I was so happy when I saw that, when I started seeing him go delete, 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 and the crowd acknowledged it, the commentators acknowledged it. I mean, it took a little longer than expected. They should have done this from the get-go, but you know what? Like I said, better late than never. It still is over to an extent, the broken stuff. It's way better than whatever the fuck he's doing now. Like, people are like, oh, he shouldn't do the broken thing. Like, what else the fuck are you going to do with him? Just have to be regular old Matt Hardy? Like, Matt Hardy is great and all, but obviously he's not been working out too well for him since Jeff got hurt. So I think going broken is the best thing he could possibly do right now. And it gives him, again, gives us a reason to care about him in its character development, its storyline progression. I think it's great. So a Bray Wyatt Matt Hardy feud would not be terrible. Like, I just got done ranting about Bray Wyatt and how no one cares about him, but a Bray Wyatt broken Matt Hardy feud was something a lot of people were talking about around this time a year ago. It wouldn't be that bad of an idea, but of course you would have to, Matt Hardy would have to go over, and then Bray Wyatt's going to lose again, so maybe not. But I don't know who Matt Hardy would feud with, if he goes heel or just becomes broken. I'm not exactly sure. But what I am sure of is that having him go broken is the absolute best thing that could have ever happened to him, because whatever the hell he was doing before and losing to Elias on the Survivor Series kickoff show is a complete waste of Matt Hardy. Jeremy B. from Facebook: which NXT star would you like to see enter Roman Reigns' IC Open Challenge? I would go with either Cassius Ohno, the Velveteen Dream, Aleister Black, Johnny Gargano, Andrade Almas, Killian Dane, or Oney Lorcan. Any of those people would be fine. I'll just steal from you and just say any of those people. Really, anyone from NXT would be cool. Cassius Ohno would be cool for a one-off. I don't know if they'll ever call him up at this point. He wasn't called up years ago during his original stint in NXT. I don't think he is now. I think he's just kind of there to help put people over. But Ohno versus Reigns could be a really, really good match. Velveteen Dream would be cool. He'll be on the main roster eventually anyway. Right now is too soon, of course. But it would be cool to see him on the main roster eventually by answering the Open Challenge. And I don't think Roman Reigns will be IC champion forever, so maybe not. Aleister Black, great match. Dumb idea. Black would have to win. You're not going to have Black lose. So I think that would be... You can't do that unless he's going to win. Johnny Gargano's an interesting one. Like, I would much rather see Johnny Gargano on the main roster as a mid-carder than in the Cruiserweight division. They'll probably put him on 205 Live, which sucks. But having a one-off against Reigns would really help his cause and maybe convince officials that, hey, maybe this guy's better than 205 Live. Let's put him in the mid-card division instead. So Gargano's a good one. Almas, another good one. He's the current NXT champion, so having him lose in an open challenge would kind of be dumb and devalue the title. So I'm going to say no to that one, although the match would be cool. Killian Dane's a good one. I think Killian Dane's a good idea because we did see him earlier this year in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. He lasted quite a while, too. And Oney Lorcan, I also like that one a lot because he's another guy who's probably never going to be called up to the main roster. He's made a few appearances on 205 Live and on SmackDown against guys like Rich Swann and Kalisto and so on and so forth. So having him come up for just one match against the Roman Reigns and look great in defeat would be pretty fucking cool. So I like a lot of those guys, some more than others, but you're onto something there. Deshaun K from Facebook: will it be a good idea for WWE to scrap, or would it be a good idea, I guess he's trying to say, for WWE to scrap the Money in the Bank pay-per-view and have the men's Money in the Bank match be at WrestleMania, and the women can have their Money in the Bank match at SummerSlam? No. I like the idea Again, I'm not opposed to the idea of doing one Money in the Bank match at WrestleMania, but if you're going to do one at WrestleMania with the men and then have the other one later on in the year with the women, just do it on the same night. It's not that big of a deal. Having two Money in the Bank ladder matches in one night isn't bad at all. I enjoyed that concept for a few years during the original incarnation of the pay-per-view before the brand split was brought back. I like that idea a lot. And just having two matches on the same show. Now they should not have more than two matches. Now, what I don't want to see, which is what people have brought up, one for the WWE title, one for the Universal title, one for the Raw Women's title, one for the SmackDown Women's. That would be fucking overkill. We do not need 4 Money in the Bank ladder matches. 2 is fine. 2 is fine. Have them on the same show. Money in the Bank, like I've said before, has always been a great pay-per-view anyway. So I have no issue with, unlike Hell in a Cell and TLC, those pay-per-views should be fucking scrapped. Because those matches should only be brought in when it means something. But we already had the Money in the Bank match every year, at the same time every year to begin with. So having it at the same time every year on a different pay-per-view, it's not that big of a deal. Plus, we already have the the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, and they already do ladder matches anyway for like the IC title, the tag title, so it doesn't have to be at WrestleMania. They went 20 WrestleManias without a ladder match happening for a briefcase. I think it's okay they're not doing it anymore, and they haven't done it in a long time. WrestleMania has been just fine without it. Maybe that first year was kind of weird, like 27, it's like, shit, where's the Money in the Bank? But beyond that, not that big of a deal. I see what you're saying, it's not a bad idea, but I personally prefer having both the men's and women's in the same night. Just having 2, getting it over with, and having it being a co-branded pay-per-view is absolutely for the best. And next question from Deshaun. I think this won't happen. I know this won't happen, he says. But if WWE were to put their trust in a female wrestler to hold the Intercontinental Championship, who would it be? Nikki Cross, Asuka, Charlotte, Nia Jax, or someone else? Those are all good options. The only woman ever, obviously, to hold the IC title was Chyna, and she was so larger than life. She could beat up men. I guess Asuka could too, if they play up the fact that she's legitimately lethal, and they have played that up. I don't really know if I want to see her as IC champion, though. I don't really know if that's necessary. Nia Jax, because she's the closest thing to Chyna out of all the women you mentioned. I wouldn't do it at all. I think it was cool for Chyna, but I would have her be the only woman. I think having a woman in the Rumble every few years is cool. I'm fine with that. But having them hold the IC title, I'm not too fond on that idea. When Chyna and Jericho were having their feud, it was so fucking ridiculous. And the co-champion shit, that was terrible. Having Chyna be the champion wasn't a terrible idea. It wasn't like the belt meant any more then as it does now. I know the belt meant something back in like the 80s and maybe the early 90s, but in the late 90s, the belt was a fucking prop as much as it is today. Hate to break it to you, but it was not all that much more prestigious than it is currently. Of the women, if I had to choose, maybe Asuka, because I could see her beating the shit out of anyone, men or women. Nia Jax has the size, but I would really have no desire to see that. Charlotte, Nikki Cross, Again, not bad ideas. I would not do it at all. But if I had to choose, probably Asuka, because she looks like she could kick anyone's ass, male or female. Booking question. Say WWE brings back the 40-man Royal Rumble match. The number 1 entrant and the underdog is Johnny Gargano. And number 2 is whoever Gargano barely surviving the match is, I don't know, wait, what? Number 2 is whoever Gargano is barely surviving the match. Okay. Number 2 is whatever, and then comma, you didn't have a comma there. Or there's the period, I'm sorry. So you say Gargano barely survives the match. The 40th entrant is Tommaso Ciampa. As the 2 entrants, Gargano eliminates Ciampa and is headed to WrestleMania. Is that good fantasy booking? For the 2018 Rumble? No. For a future Rumble? Yes. Why 40 entrants, though? Like, I always thought the 40-man Rumble was a good idea because I kind of enjoyed the 2011 one, but there were so many jobbers in the thing that it wasn't even worth it, and it dragged on longer than it should. So you don't really need to have 40 men in the Rumble, first of all. It could be just 30, so I could see that concept working with 30 people. I do like that idea a lot. You could still do that with guys like, Sami Zayn or Kevin Owens. That would be pretty cool if they did that for the 2018 Rumble, because people know them. You can't do it for this coming Rumble. I mean, it's going to be in fucking Philly, so people would cheer if it came down to Gargano and he won. It's better than Roman Reigns, obviously. But Gargano is a WrestleMania headliner for a world title so soon and getting called up in the process. Now, someone asked me a while ago if there's anyone from NXT that I could see winning the Rumble on night one. Gargano would not be that guy. I love Johnny Gargano, and it's never going to happen, obviously, because Vince would never push a guy like Gargano towards the main event. They're not going to push Sami Zayn towards the main event. What makes you think they're going to push Gargano towards the main event? In theory, though, putting that aside, like realistic chances of it happening, being slim to none, putting all that aside, is it a good idea? Yes, but only after like people get to know their feud. People on the main roster, casual fans, don't give a fuck about Johnny Gargano. They don't give a fuck about Tommaso Ciampa. So why would they care about these two no-name jobbers? I mean, they're awesome in NXT, but the casual audience has no idea who these people are. So why would they care? Why would they care about this story being told? So again, for the 2018 Rumble, way too soon, but after they're established on the main roster and their feud carries from NXT to the main roster, and they're not in the Cruiserweight division, hopefully, which I can't guarantee, but it's bound to happen, I guess, then it's a good idea. But for the 2018 Rumble, not really, and I also don't see Gargano ever winning the Rumble, so that kind of eliminates that possibility. At HardyDX fan from Twitter as well, his question is, do you think Shawn's broken back ultimately saved his career? Yeah, you know what? Actually kind of did, because he came back better than ever, not only in the ring, but he was in a terrible mental state, obviously, before he broke his back. He was a fucking asshole in the locker room, and had he not gotten his back hurt, had he not retired the first time, then who knows? He probably would have stuck around and gotten himself into even worse trouble than he was before, and had, even worse backstage politics and worse heat and shit like that, and maybe he would not have even been around by 2010 in WWE. So, yeah, I think the broken back really did save his career, and it's not like, I know people say now, like, oh, Rollins is not the same post, surgery as he was before he had the knee injury or whatever, which might be true to an extent, but Shawn never really lost a beat. I mean, the guy came back and had classic after classic after classic. He didn't lose a step in the ring, starting at SummerSlam and ending at WrestleMania 26. So yeah, I do think the broken back definitely saved his career. You are right about that. His second question, will the night after WrestleMania eventually lose its flair? Maybe. Not anytime soon. I feel like people always look forward to it, especially in the last 5 years, because it always guarantees new call-ups, fresh storylines. I mean, it's always been a big deal. It was never as big of a deal as it is currently, because the crowds were never as rowdy as they are nowadays. I don't think it will, though. I think it always will have that special, feeling about it, that we're always going to get call-ups, something shocking is going to happen, maybe a title change, title matches, stuff like that. So, no, I don't think it will. It's kind of like the Rumble, where there's always something new to look forward to. The Rumble has now been around for 30 years. And I know that's more of a concept than a night. That's a match stipulation. This is a show. But I don't think it will, because you never really know what might quite happen. If we go a couple years where, if there's a couple years, there's a stretch there where like nothing ever happens and then after WrestleMania, and we just come to expect nothing, then yeah, maybe. But I don't think it will. I think it will always have that special, unpredictable feeling about it, that aura that guarantees excitement from the fans in attendance. And you're always going to have a rowdy crowd. If it's a dull fucking show, you're going to hear about it from the fans in attendance. And that's been the case for a long time now. So I don't think it will. And his next question, what do you think is holding Dean Ambrose back from being the number one guy in WWE? He's just not their guy. The same thing that held back CM Punk. He's a great talker. Punk was an even better wrestler. He might even be a better talker. I mean, that's up for debate. But he's just not. First of all, Ambrose is better off as a heel. He's been a good babyface, but he really peaked in like 2014 when he had that like Austin vibe about him, Stone Cold vibe. But no one's ever going to be the next Stone Cold, obviously. But that was probably the peak. But he's just not a guy that they can build a company around. He's just not. Again, for the same reason they would not build around Punk. Because he doesn't look like a larger-than-life character. He's not great. I mean, if you watch any Dean Ambrose interview, the guy could not talk in an interview for shit. And Dean Ambrose seems like a really nice guy, but he's super socially awkward. And there's not a lot of great Dean Ambrose interviews out there, like outside of the ring. Like, I'm not talking about promos. I'm talking about, like, him being interviewed on sets and shit. And he doesn't go out there wearing a suit. Like, that's just not who Dean Ambrose is. He's just not their guy. He could be a top guy where he's in the main event all the time. I don't argue with that. But he'll never be the number one guy. That's never going to happen. But he can be close to that. He can be the number 2 guy if they booked him properly. If they gave him more character development and shit like that. Now, of course, now he's doing better because he's a part of the Shield. But once that runs its course, are we going to go back to lunatic fringe Dean Ambrose or the goofy, with the cute comedy Dean Ambrose? Like, I don't really want to see that. I would like to see him turn heel. I think he could be a top guy better off in that position than he is currently as a babyface. But bottom line, he'll never be the number 1 guy because he's just not their guy, and I can understand why. He doesn't look like the guy. He doesn't. The interview. I mean, Roman Reigns. He is actually much more likable in real life interviews than he is on TV. I know, surprise, surprise. And Ambrose seems like a nice guy too, but he's just very, very awkward. I mean, you would never get that from any other past guy in WWE, number 1 guy, but that's why. At Hunter_610, favorite era in wrestling and why? If I had to choose, I mean, I've enjoyed the last 10 years I've been a fan for. I don't know if it's my favorite era. I've always loved the Ruthless Aggression era. I've said that a lot, but if I had to choose between Attitude Era and Ruthless Aggression, I'm more of an in-ring guy. And, I mean, Raw at that point was kind of dreadful, but SmackDown was lit from 02 to 05. So I'm going to go with Ruthless Aggression. That's what I've always said is my favorite era in wrestling aside from the years that I've been a fan for. At E13A, his question was, do you remember this moment? It was a video of Vladimir Kozlov beating The Undertaker, or a GIF or whatever. I do remember that. I was so surprised that Kozlov beat Taker on a fucking power slam on SmackDown. I was like, what the fuck? And I don't know if they were gauging the audience reaction to see if people wanted to see that match at WrestleMania, because the match sucked. So that, no one cared about Kozlov well before that match even happened. So I don't know why they did that, because then Taker went on to get his win back anyway, like a few weeks later. Right after Michaels was confirmed to be facing Taker at WrestleMania, they just gave Taker his win back, and then Kozlov was unbeaten no more. So yes, I do remember that, but it was just so bizarre. Like it's a Super Vince thing where like, yeah, have Kozlov beat Taker, yeah, damn it, and we're gonna do the match at WrestleMania. And obviously they didn't. It would have sucked. That Mania would have blown had they not done Shawn Michaels and Taker. That would have been abysmal. Even worse than it was the WrestleMania 25. Anyway, at Scarlet1 from Twitter, got a couple questions here. First one being, what was the better show, WrestleMania 1 from 85 or Starrcade at Flair for the Gold from 83? Definitely Starrcade, not even close. The undercard on Starrcade, like I reviewed and talked about a few days ago on WrestleRant, or yesterday I guess, was not that great, but the main matches were awesome. Those final few matches were fucking great. That first WrestleMania, the main event, is okay. Not much else from that WrestleMania is newsworthy at all. It's a fine show, it's a spectacle, it's the first ever WrestleMania, but beyond that, it's not a great show. Starrcade was way better, that's not even a question. Second question, is there a good cliche in wrestling? That's a good question. I can't think of one. I mean, there's certain things about wrestling I don't really give a shit about, like the returns and stuff like that. Like, you know it's coming, but you love it anyway. That doesn't really bother me. Or like when the underdog eventually overcomes the Goliath and shit like that. I mean, we see that quite a bit, but it's always fun. So maybe that's a good cliche. But yeah, like I talked about last week, the contract signings and the distraction roll-ups, that shit's got to go. Keep or erase Kane? Keep. Why wouldn't you keep Kane? Why would you erase Kane? I mean, I know the guy's not the greatest wrestler in the world, but he's been one of the best and most iconic characters in the last 20 years in this company. Keep Kane all day. I'm not a big fan of him nowadays, but gotta keep Kane. The following are one-on-one matches that never happened. Rank from least to greatest, your level of interest. Booker T versus Shawn Michaels, Christian versus Triple H, Eddie Guerrero versus The Undertaker, and Ric Flair versus John Cena. From most amount of interest to least amount of interest, Eddie and Taker I think would have been a great match. Largely thanks to Eddie, so that would be number 1. 2, Cena and Flair. I'm shocked we never got that match at least once. I feel like we did on an episode of Raw or something. I guess not, because you said we didn't, but For some reason, I could have sworn we fucking did. Anyway, Cena Flair. I mean, obviously, when Cena... It depends when it would have happened. Even if it happened in, like, 2005, I mean, it's not Ric Flair of old, so it's a little bit different, but it would have still been cool to see. 3, Booker and Michaels. I think that would have been a good match. Not a match like, oh, I'm clamoring to see Shawn Michaels and Booker T. I think I've said that here before in the show before, that it's a match that never happened, but it doesn't bother me that it never happened. Especially, it's weird because they faced off in that first ever Elimination Chamber. I'm shocked they never had a one-on-one match before that show. Anyway, so that, and then Christian Triple H. I love Christian, but Christian and Triple H, nothing about that match excites me, although I like Christian a lot, though. And final 3 questions from Brad Berard before we wrap it up. His first question. In hindsight, I guess it's better that they waited so long, as it made their first tag team title win against the New Age Outlaws more special. But do you think WWE waited too long to put the tag titles on the Usos? There were some really mediocre tag champs like Primo and Epico from 2010 to 2014, and the Usos were always good workers, and they were pretty over with the audience from when they first turned babyface early on. I saw no reason to not give them a tag title run back then. No, you know what? I like the way they did it. Because, yeah, they were over. Not really. You know what? You say they were over when they first turned babyface. That's not really true. I mean, they were definitely more over as babyfaces than they ever were as heels early on when they first arrived in WWE. No one gave a shit about those guys when they first came into the company. They were good wrestlers. They had a decent feud of the Hart Dynasty, but they got zero heat. Zero heat. Now, the cool little entrance and paying tribute to like guys like Umaga and their ancestors and shit with the old Samoan dance at the top of the stage, that was cool. They got good reactions, but they weren't that over. Like, they were on NXT for like a fucking year, and that was before they started doing the face paint and shit like that, and not NXT what it is now. I'm talking about like the Redemption NXT, the dark days. And then they started wearing the face paint, and that was really, in my opinion, the turning point. Now, I was at that Raw when they debuted the face paint, and from there, they were immediate tag title contenders. To me, their big coming out party was that Shield match on the Money in the Bank 2013 kickoff show. That was when people started looking at the Usos like, wow, these guys should be champions. These guys are fucking great. But there was really never a time after that. I would have had the Usos beat Rhodes and Goldust, but having the Usos beat the New Age Outlaws, who were heels at the time, was cool. It was a cool endorsement of the Usos. I would have waited to do it at WrestleMania, but they had other plans for the New Age Outlaws, so whatever. But I thought it was cool. It got a big pop in Chicago. People so desperately wanted to see the Usos win the tag titles. And it was an awesome moment when they finally did. So yeah, I'm definitely going to say that they took the right approach. I thought because they had not been champions for so long, it definitely meant more when they eventually won them. Now, had they won them in 2010, 2011, they would have peaked too early, and maybe they would have broken up. And the reason they stayed together for so long was because they never won the tag team titles. That was the only reason why. And then after they dropped them, they remained together, and they've only gotten better since then. The Usos now are better now than they have ever been. Ever. Including that 2014 run when they were on fire. So, yeah. I think with the Usos, they definitely, they definitely waited the perfect amount of time to put the titles on them. I don't think they waited too long. It wasn't like people were clamoring for the moment, years earlier, and it never happened. And by the time they finally won the belts, no one cared. When they finally won the belts, people went nuts because it was the first time in 4 years it happened. So I'm definitely happy they waited as long as they did to put the belts on the Usos, and they deserved it. And you can tell from the reaction they received that night from Chicago on that Raw right before WrestleMania 30. His second question, do you think the Hype Bros split can revive Zack Ryder's career in any way, or will it just be used to elevate Mojo? Definitely the latter. It's just going to be used to elevate Mojo. I think Zack Ryder's career, I don't want to say it's done, because he did win the Intercontinental Championship, albeit for a day at WrestleMania 32. I almost said 33, 32. It was a year and a half ago, I guess, at this point. Almost 2 years. But that was a fluke win. He lost the next day. They're never going to do anything with Zack Ryder. They've pretty much proven that by this point. I love Ryder, but it would be cool if they made him a singles guy again. But I think the time to do that would have been before Mojo came to the main roster. He had some momentum there for a while. Like, he faced Rusev for the U.S. title. Like I said, he was the Intercontinental Champion for a day in 2016, but he had some momentum as a singles guy. As a singles guy by the summer of 2016. And then they brought in Mojo, and they became a tag team again. But yeah, they want to elevate Mojo. I'm not sure what the ceiling is for Mojo. I think he's way better off as a heel. Maybe that'll make him more bearable, hopefully. But yeah, I think this will only really be used to elevate Mojo more so than to revive Zack Ryder's singles career. And then final question, can you think of any bad pay-per-views that had really good theme songs, or any good pay-per-views that didn't have a good theme song? Great question. WrestleMania 29, I fucking hated. WrestleMania 27 is perfect. Great example, because that show was terrible. But I loved Written in the Stars by Tiny Tempa. That was probably my favorite WrestleMania theme ever, and still is. So that's a great example. 29 too, like I said, Bones. And Coming Home by P. Diddy or whatever the fuck his name is now, was a cool theme song. So I enjoyed that, and Bones, I forgot who it was by, but that was another WrestleMania 29 theme song. So those shows suck, but the theme songs were good. Good pay-per-views that didn't have good theme songs. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of them. I mean, like this year alone, I mean, there has not been a lot of good theme songs at all for pay-per-views in 2017 for whatever reason. But let me think. Fuck. I don't know. 33, which I loved WrestleMania 33. That had a great theme song. Give Me the Green Light. I really grew to like that one. There's been a bunch though. There's been a lot of good pay-per-views. I just could not remember the theme song at all. Just because they were so forgettable. Not necessarily because they were bad, just because I don't remember the theme song. Great Balls of Fire, I forgot who it was by, though. Great Balls of Fire, that song. Jerry Lewis. Isn't that his name? Jerry Lewis? The show is pretty good. Obviously, I didn't really care too much about the theme song, because it was from the fucking 50s. But, yeah, there's been a few like that, though. I'm trying to think in other, recent years. Battleground 2016 was great, and that had a great theme song. 2015, what was great in 2015 besides WrestleMania? I don't really know. 2014, 2013, I'm trying to think. I don't know. There's a lot of, blurs, in terms of pay-per-view theme songs. 2012, I don't know. For all the good pay-per-views I can remember, they had good theme songs, but this year alone has had a lot of bad or forgettable pay-per-view themes, and I'll be talking all about that with Jamie Lee Mack in a few weeks on Wrestle Rant Radio, so stay tuned for that. So on that note, guys, that does it for episode 209 of #AskGSM here today for November 29th, 2017. Thank you guys, as always, for checking out the video and listening or watching, whatever. If you want to send in a question, find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.Jason.Matthews. Leave a question on the post. I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. Tweet me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. And drop a question down below in the comment section. I'll include it in next week's edition. So, of course, be sure to like the video, drop a comment, like I just said, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. We'll be back next week with another all-new episode of #AskGSM, the first official show in the month of December. The Christmas countdown is on, folks. Episode 210 coming your way next Wednesday. Until then, guys, have a great rest of your week. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.